I'm Christopher Axworthy, one of the artistic directors of the Keyboard Trust. We are here in St Matthew's Church in Ealing, a new venue for the Keyboard Trust, to stream concerts and podcasts. And I have with me today here Jonathan Ferrucci, an artist of the Keyboard Trust, who recently did a live stream to Washington. It was live streamed to Washington because he should have gone to Washington. He had an American tour arranged by the Keyboard Trust, which unfortunately, like everything else, was cancelled. And Jonathan has now spent the lockdown time. He's been working on the Goldberg Variations, which he's starting to play. He's playing them here in London on the 28th of March, and he's playing them in Italy on the 24th of April. And we've invited him here today to come and talk to us, give him his thoughts on having studied the Goldberg Variations. I know quite a lot about the Goldberg Variations because I have a theatre in Rome, and Rosalind Turek made her comeback in Europe in my theatre playing the Goldberg Variations. And then she came to Florence to play, and Jonathan was born in Florence. Jonathan studied in Florence with Giovanni Camassi, quite a remarkable teacher, and there's a remarkable book by Camassi, which I will talk about later on. And then Jonathan was invited by, or suggested by Angela Hewitt, to come to study to England with Joan Havell, which he's done, and he's still here in England.
And here I am.
Yes. And we both are, we're half in Italy and half in England, so we have something in common apart from music and the Goldberg Variations and the Keyboard Trust. So, Jonathan, please.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I thought I'd just start by playing the theme of the Goldberg Variations, the aria, and then I'm sure we'll have a wonderful conversation about them. So here is the aria from the Goldberg Variations.
I know we have something else in common as well, that we have a great friend who's Angela Hewitt.
Yes.
And Angela Hewitt, I heard recently played the Goldberg Variations in the St Thomas Kirche, where Bach is buried. And it was quite remarkable for us. We often used to have discussions with Angela about the different types of interpretation, that Angela bases her interpretation on the song and the dance, whereas Rosalind Turek bases it more on an intellectual, it's like a rock. Nothing must move this rock. Even if the wind is blowing, the rock must be always the same. Now, how much in the Goldberg Variations would you agree? Is the tempo, should it always be the same in all the variations? And if not, why not? And how do you deal with that? The fluctuations in tempo, is it something you just follow your instinct, or is it something that you feel particularly there is something about certain variations that have to move in a different way from others?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and definitely we see so many performances that vary so much from this perspective, from the perspective of a sense of rhythm, whether we have a pulse that is steady throughout, or whether each variation takes off with a different sense of dance and meter. I studied with Angela Hewitt, so I really admired from the beginning from when I first met her, how the dance element is present in everything she plays. And I certainly believe that each one of these variations has its own personality, and so I really try to bring that out through the element of rhythm and through the element of dance. Having said that, of course, there are connections between the variations, and I think the hard thing to do is to thread through each of these variations from beginning to end a coherent line that creates one steady performance from beginning to end.
And does that coherent line, does that include all the repeats?
That coherent line includes all the repeats for me, for now. I mean...
If you cut out one of the repeats, would you break the line?
No, not necessarily. I think that's each performer's choice to make. So as you notice, I didn't play the repeats right now, just for a question of timing for this podcast. But I really believe that the process of learning and performing the Goldberg Variations, for me personally, is a lifelong journey. And so I embarked upon this journey with the awareness that what I believe now may change and may evolve. Today, I know that I want to play them with all repeats, and this performance that I have coming up is my first performance of them.
This is the one in London, yes, on the 28th.
That's correct.
Yes.
So in a way, well, let's see what happens. I've definitely noticed in the last couple of weeks that I've started running through the whole work from beginning to end. What a journey it is, and it really feels like crossing the Pacific Ocean in a way. At first, I have to admit, I found it incredibly challenging from the point of view of stamina and of just energy levels, because it's 80 minutes of music, and also music that includes an incredible use of counterpoint, and so it really does take a lot of mental stamina and physical stamina.
But talking of stamina, I remember Joan Havel said to you when you announced you were going to play Brahms' second piano concerto, she said, "Yes, dear, but you have to put some more muscles on."
Yeah, well, yeah.
But she didn't know that you did yoga.
Well, she said she asked me if I did bodybuilding when I asked if I could play Brahms' second.
Oh, did she? I didn't know that.
And my answer at the time was, "No, Joan, but I do yoga."
You do yoga, and you say that you stand on your head for 5 minutes a day, which clears everything and gets you ready for the day.
Well, it doesn't clear everything, but it definitely helps. And I think in that sense, just putting yourself upside down and seeing the world from a different perspective is very useful.
It could actually be the same thing that Angela has, because Angela was a dancer before.
That's right, yeah.
And it could be that music, a natural way of using the body, is linked up to her dancing as it's linked up to your yoga. That this is a way, and this is a way of the music being part of life, basically.
Yeah,
not an intellectual exercise.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that we all, for me, music and yoga are just two expressions of myself, and so we all have our passions, our things we like, and they are all part of us as a whole. So definitely. But getting back to the idea of how the rhythm of the Goldberg Variations evolved, personally, I think that each variation should be respected as an individual, and then put into relationship with the rest. And so I don't personally keep a steady pulse from beginning to end using the same exact metronome marking.
I used to buy a metronome every time that Rosalind Turek came to play for us. I used to have to go and buy her a metronome. She literally, because she was such a passionate woman, she needed this thing to keep her in control. Right. And her performances are totally in control, always. And sometimes people criticize them, whereas Angela's and yours are completely much freer. And I don't mean free in the sense of being out of control. I mean free in the sense that you feel there's a certain flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's incredible flexibility in this music. You know, all music does come from song and from dance, and
exactly.
And as human beings, we are constantly fluctuating. So I think that's definitely there. But I also think that the control element is essential to be able to carry a performance of this piece. And what I've noticed in the last few weeks that I've been playing them through is that there are certain variations that really give energy back to the performer. If you allow that energy to be fed back to you.
Like what? Can you give us an example?
Of course. I mean, for example, we get to the first minor variation, which is number 15, and it ends the first half of the Goldberg Variations.
Before the French overture.
Before the French overture.
Okay, yeah.
And, it's a very tired variation, and it also is a tiring moment because, you've passed the halfway point, and 15 variations is a lot.
Yeah.
And then what I've noticed is that in the 16th variation, in this French overture, if you really allow the music to give you the energy back, it's there. Bach, what's amazing about the Goldberg Variations to me is that it feels like a self-sufficient cycle. It's an ecosystem that has a zero carbon footprint in a way. If you find those points where you can get the energy back from the piece, then you will never run out of energy. Of course, the hard thing is finding that and allowing that to happen. And so that's the challenge that I'm facing at the moment.
Yeah. But have you played them all the way through? Have you had a
I have. I mean, for my flatmates, given the current COVID circumstances,
yes,
on my upright piano. So that also has been a big challenge, having to work on an upright piano, which is not ideal for such a long time. But what it has helped me do is really, because there have been so few performance opportunities, I've really appreciated the idea of what interpretation is, and I feel that it's becoming more and more of a mirror for me into the self, a mirror towards understanding what is authentic and what is not authentic, not necessarily from a historical point of view, but just from a human, from a personal point of view. And I feel like there is no clearer and more transparent mirror than the Goldberg Variations. As soon as you attempt something that is not completely authentic and doesn't come from a place of a true love for the piece, you can hear it right away. You can't get away with, with anything that's false in this piece. And I've noticed that in my preparation, in my work, as soon as my ego jumps in and says, oh well, I think that I want to do that there.
Could the ego be adding ornaments? I mean, can you take a certain...
good question.
I mean, the freedom is that. It's like a little cadenza in a way. Yeah. It could be in the wrong hands. It could be really get out of control, couldn't it?
Definitely. I mean, ornaments is a big topic because it seems like a small thing. You just add a few notes here and there.
Every repeat you do, is that more ornamented when it comes back the second time, or not necessarily?
So that depends. What I've noticed... So I have one basic rule for ornamentation. Before I look at all the, what's historical, what's not historical. But I have one basic rule. If it feels right, okay. If it doesn't feel right, if it's not spontaneous, chuck it out the window, I mean, it has to be organic.
Do you follow the rule book?
So,
I mean, is there a rule book? Is there a guide? I mean, Bach left us a short guide, but I mean, is that the one you follow, or do you break the rules?
Well, I had the pleasure and the great honor of meeting Robert Levin when I was about 20, and he really, he's been an inspiration not just for ornaments. I really want to say that he's such a fantastic, such a deep musician, someone who really is so passionate about what he does, and he really opened my mind completely.
I think it's an inspiration to us all.
Yeah.
I mean, what I've seen of him,
Yes.
the masterclasses at the Guildhall, it's absolutely amazing.
It's incredible.
The simplicity with which he does it.
Exactly, and so charismatic, right?
Exactly.
But also his knowledge of the historical part and is really encyclopedic. It's never ending. So whenever I've had some kind of doubt of like, is this okay to do? I have to say that my point of authority has been Robert Levin.
Are you in touch with him for the Goldberg Variations at all?
I haven't been for this, to be honest. But I played quite a lot of Bach to him in the past, and he's told me a few things about what he's learned from studying manuscripts and from all the academic work that he's done.
Have you seen the other edition? Have you seen the Brusoni edition, for example?
I've seen a few, but I have to say I've probably opened the
triumphant final.
I've opened the Busoni edition and then closed it probably after.
I think when you get halfway, as you said, to the 16th, when it becomes Liszt Paganini, basically,
Yeah.
then I think that's the time to close it down.
Yeah.
But it does give a certain light on certain things. It gives you an idea, an inspiration of certain things, but obviously not to do it in such a way that maybe that was the way to do it in that period, but not these days. I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I think it's good to have an Urtext edition because we do want to go back to the source as much as possible.
Is there an original score of the Bach? Is there an original manuscript?
Well, I've seen bits of the manuscript.
There is
but
one. It's kept somewhere. Is it in Leipzig?
Yes,
or
I'm pretty sure it's in Leipzig, but I don't.
Yeah.
I have to say, one thing that I have done very little of in the preparation of Goldberg is going into the academic side of things. I really wanted to, at first at least, just dive into the real stuff, the notes, what's there. I didn't want to lose myself too much into intellectual academic trains of thought, which are absolutely essential, and I'm grateful to all the scholars who've done this work. But for the first part of this journey, I really wanted to just dive into the music, which is what really Bach does, from the aria, from this beautiful moment of complete stillness, he just dives headfirst into the first variation. It's just...
Rosalind Turek, for example, played that almost half the speed that you do. As though on the bows were single bows, not linked up bows. But, it just shows that there's a whole thing of different interpretations. There's nothing precise about it. The blocks you, that you have to do it in a certain way. And I think your natural way, and Angela's natural way, is the way I'm being convinced that is the way to do it. It speaks more, the music speaks more to me. How do you deal with the end of the quodlibet then? And the repeat of the aria? Do you leave the bass note on, or is there a silence before the return of the aria?
Well, for me, there is a silence, I think.
I had one performance with Andrei Tchaikovsky, he left the pedal on.
Oh,
and then the aria came floating in on the
see.
top, and it was absolute magic. Not completely out of style, one might say. But it was done in such a way that I've never forgotten it, and no one else ever heard do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said I'm more and more convinced that this is the way. I think that there are as many valid interpretations of the Goldberg Variations as there are human beings.
Well, in the theatre I always used to play that of Landowska. Wanda Landowska is what I mean.
Yeah.
And someone, a great musician, came and he said, "Who's played that?" I said, "That's Wanda Landowska." You couldn't believe it. In a theatre, when we're doing plays, have this. And that was obviously on a souped-up harpsichord, but that was wonderful playing as well. Have you heard her play it?
I don't think I've heard her Goldberg. I remember hearing parts of the Well-Tempered Clavier when I was very young, and being impressed by that. There was something incredibly serious about this playing that I...
imperious, I would say.
Yeah, maybe. It kind of frightened me a little bit.
Well, especially in Florence, it's exactly that. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I do like to have a silence before the return of the aria. I think that silence is such a precious moment because it's, a moment of, it can be different for everyone. For me, it's been so many things. It's been a moment where you return home. It's been a moment where you perhaps start the beginning of a new cycle. It's been the moment where you finally realize that all of these variations are actually have been there the whole time, and that we were complete right from the beginning with the theme coming back at the end. So I think it's a very special moment.
But then with the aria coming back at the end, do you do the repeats in the aria, the repeat of the aria? So that you do all the repeats as well. Lots of people don't. But,
No, I like doing the repeats. As I said, I think, who knows, maybe in 1 year we'll have this conversation again, and I will be doing, 2 repeats in the whole piece. I don't know.
Well, you have to live with it, of course.
Exactly.
It's not enough.
Yeah, I just know that for now, as my first step, I really want to start from what's written, which is repeats. So
I think now what we'd like is to hear you play it some more.
Sure.
Could be
so
a choice, a potpourri, whatever you decide is best.
I would love to just illustrate a few key points for me of these variations, which really set some kind of points of, how could I say, departure.
Punti di partenza.
Punti di partenza.
We're both singing in Italian.
So, for example, for me, when we get to variation 12, between variation 12 and variation 13 is a really important moment, because 13 for me is really the first variation that lifts off higher and kind of takes.
Do you play this slowly or quickly?
I play this. I don't know. After this really, there's such a strong sense of rhythm in this variation, of stability and of grounding. And then after this, we really lift off into another dimension with variation 13. After this variation 13, we quickly get to the first minor one, which is variation 15, which for me presents us with the first moment of a sense of tiredness and a sense of, this is the long journey and of difficulty. And that's what I love about the Goldberg Variations, is that there are so many moments of struggle. We have these 3 minor variations that really represent difficult, critical points in this journey. So the 15th variation closes the first half of the Goldberg Variations, and it has this kind of sighing, tired, downward motif. then
half, yeah.
from there we really take off.
We start
with-
off with, yeah.
And so this really opens what I was saying before, it really gives the audience and hopefully the performer, another boost of energy as we move forward. And then for me, the other really critical point that we get to is the 25th variation, which is the big minor, the last of the three minor variations, and really the moment of most, of biggest struggle and despair, really, and also death. I feel like this is a moment of really absence of life in the Goldberg variations. So I won't play the whole thing. It's very, very long.
The variations, the big long one before the actual thing just sort of blows up, basically. There's also one here, the 22nd one, I think, in this one, which seems like something, the reawakening,
After
which
the
takes
second,
us,
yeah.
gives us a slight hint of what's coming.
Yeah.
And before it all sort of starts bubbling over,
Yeah.
and we have the contemplation, the 25th, as you say, the desolate contemplation before the actual thing, it really explodes.
Yeah.
And all the fireworks start, and the problems that you'll talk to us about of two keyboards
Okay. Yeah.
playing on
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
and how you cope with that,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
the technical part of it. yeah.
Sure. I mean, yes, you mentioned the 22nd, which is this. And it goes. So
It's
this is
sort of
really
the
a moment
reawakening, yeah.
of spring,
Because
in a
it
way.
comes after the one which is very contemplative.
After
one
the
just before
second
it,
minor
yeah,
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we've got a cloud opens, and we just get a glimpse of what we're in for.
Yeah. And just before the 25th, just before the last minor one, I feel like we have there's this, the rhythm is 9/8, the meter is 9/8, so this 24th variation. And at the end, I really feel like we hear the heartbeat slowing down. I'll just play from the end. And it's really slowing down because
There are no indications of Bach, though, about tempo, are there, in this? Ritardo,
No.
There are no indications of that?
No,
sort?
of course. We have, we just know, for example, that we can tell some of them are dances, like the 7th is clearly a jig. And then in the 25th one, actually, we have the marking adagio at the beginning.
Ah, there is, yes, I didn't.
And so on. So this is really a moment of as you said, of contemplation, but also of for me, of really loss of life, of grief.
Yeah.
And then after that, what's incredible is that, you know, in Bach's music, there's always hope. There's always a moment of hope. And there's this moment in the 26th variation where we really have this bubbling feeling of rebirth. And it really, you know, takes off and again, another boost of energy that carries us through to the end.
Yeah. How about playing those two?
Those
do you
two.
feel like playing?
I mean, yes, I'm not really warmed up, but why not?
Yeah, I'm sure
Okay.
we'd all love to hear a lot more.
So the 25th and the 26th.
Yeah, actually the 23rd one. Do you find a problem with the 23rd one?
This one, Ian?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I find a problem with many of them. You know, we have this you know, machine which is the piano, and I was you know, I saw a picture of a harpsichord the other day with two manuals, and I got a little bit jealous.
Yeah.
But
there was a piano with two manuals as well, the Henry Moore piano, which was, I think, had this in mind, to be able to play what was on two manual harpsichord, to be able to play it on the piano, but with a different sonority, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I asked about the 23rd one because it was the day that Rosalind Turek was supposed to play in Florence, and she cancelled the concert. And I said, "Oh, Madame Turek, it's such a shame you've cancelled the concert because the head of Deutsche Grammophon is here." And so she not only played the concert, she played the concert without her aid memoir. She had little cards that she put in the piano to help her remember. She played completely without anything. She came out and played it wonderfully well. And she was the diva of Florence, as Angela Hewitt is the diva of Florence now. They've passed the Bach from one to another. But in this, she had a slight memory. I thought it was a memory slip in the, and she said, "No, darling, that's the 23rd one." I've always found that. She's played it for 50 years. I've always found that the most difficult one.
I mean, it's a bit ridiculous. I find it to be quite a silly variation. I mean, there's a sense of humor in a lot of these pieces as well. Sometimes we take things a bit too seriously. You know, this is kind of silly.
Do you have fun doing it? Do you add character to them? Do you feel as though you're allowed to add character? I mean, not overdo the bad to make it bad taste, but I mean, do you allow yourself that liberty?
Well, I allow myself to try to see what's in the music and to channel that. So to me, when I see this, I do think that there is a sense of humor in this and a you know, playfulness in this particular variation, and you know, and in some others there is instead a great seriousness and you know, sense of
How do you contemplate the quadribet then, the 30th variation, which are two popular tunes, which I can't remember the words, but they're very popular words, and she puts them together, and that is the final variation, basically, isn't it? Do you take that seriously or not?
Well, I find it really moving that, you know, the last variation is this combination of great intellect, which is the form of counterpoint and canon, that is paired with, you know, popular tunes. And it's really, for me, Bach giving a big hug to everyone at the end of the performance, saying, you know, we're all human beings. And really, it's a moment of union for me. I think that, like everything, you know, that moment at the end of a really nice, you know, dinner that you've had with people. I mean, if we can remember that from before COVID, but you know, of a nice party or whatever, where you know it's been a great time, but there's a nostalgic moment because it's the end, you know, and the fact that it's such a joyful piece, but it is the last variation, so it is intrinsically, you know, infused with the light of the sunset in a way. So I feel like it has both, like life. You know, every moment of happiness does have the shade of a tearful moment as well. Yeah. So I really love that. There's no need to add sadness to it because the sadness is already there. We're at the last variation where we're almost back to almost home, almost back to the aria.
So let's hear some.
So shall I just play maybe the ending, the quadlib, and back to the aria, or would you like? What would you like?
I'd like both.
You'd like both.
I like the 25 and
25
the one
and
you
26.
promised before,
Okay.
26, and then I'd like the other.
I would like
If I
to
may.
ask forgiveness to the listeners for my cold hands, but
No, well, I think I ought to tell everyone as well that Jonathan, we only asked, I think, 12 hours ago to do this podcast and to invite someone to talk about and actually play the Goldberg Variations at such last minute is absolutely miraculous, and we're very grateful to Jonathan for doing
well,
this.
thanks for
And
having
it's inspiring to hear you talk. I knew it would be, of course, but it's nice to hear and to see that it's being recorded. Some of the things you've said today are quite memorable.
Thank you. Well, so here are the 25th and 26th variation, and then we'll maybe end with the last.
Yes.
last.
Let's have some more, please.
Okay, so
What about 29, 30, and
29.
31?
Okay, so let's
I wouldn't ask for 20, 28 because that is complicated.
Let's,
But if you'd like to.
let's go from 29.
29, which is the great big,
Yes.
you know. Do you add octaves in the
I
song?
do.
You do you? Yes, I saw Angela Hewitt did that too the other
Right.
day. Yeah, and it worked wonderfully well,
Yeah,
I must
yeah.
say. Yes, it's a good idea. But it's not authentic. Well, it could be
Well,
authentic actually. Yes, it
The
could
thing
actually,
is
couldn't it?
that,
Yes.
you know, we're playing this, it's inauthentic to begin with because we're playing on the piano. So, for me, authentic doesn't mean, you know, don't add octaves. Authentic means see what's appropriate for the instrument that you're playing with. Use what
Yes,
you have
but,
at your disposal.
but with reference to Busoni, I think you would retract that statement if you've
But-
seen what he did to the Goldberg Variations in his edition,
Yeah.
which ends in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
You know, the quadlibet and the aria at the end ends with all the trumpets blowing. You know, it's an interpretation, but you know.
Surely, but you know, there is, I do think that there is, you know, there is, taste is a factor, and you know,
Yes.
some things are excessive, and some things, and again, it's true, it's my interpretation, it's my personal taste. For me, the octaves here are appropriate.
I think it's a perfect solution too. Yes.
Okay.
So please do. Yes. should be absolute silence after that. But I do want to just say to the people that are listening, so inspiring what you were saying, everything you've said today. And where has this inspiration come from? Where has the seed been sown? And I think you probably agree, the seed has been sown here. In this teacher, the teacher for 10 years, Giovanni Carnacamazzi, and this book, Conversations with Your Father who's Italian, you live in Florence, translated by your mother who's Australian.
That's correct, yeah.
And this is like a Bible. It's on a par with the book, the Pittis Bible, which is the book by Heinrich Neuhaus. This is just as inspiring, in a different way, completely inspiring. And reading this and listening to you today, talking and playing, I can see there's a seed that was sown in Florence via this man. And
well,
I think
definitely. I mean, he really inspired me to pursue music in life, so I owe him everything.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you so much.